Hi, this is Selvin Katukaran, and in today's episode, we're gonna look at a real-world application for the last episode that we did. So you might have seen the video where I did show how to load a file to a table in OneStream. So we're going to say, okay, we're gonna change that slightly, and then say, okay, I am going to extract the data from a OneStream cube and load that into a relational table so that the downstream systems can use it. So we're going to look at how to do it and more importantly, why it works the way it works. So we will create a data management sequence to extract the data and then push this one and also reuse the last rule that we used. Let's look at our data management job. So I do have an export data management sequence. I'm just going to say, okay, this is going to be my file name. I picked up all the data units. I picked up the base data. I created a step, which is nothing but execute business rule. I used our old rule, which is load delimited to table in there. I created a sequence where I have an export data step and a load to the table step. Now we are going to change the file name. So before that, let me run the export data job so that we get the file in there. So I just ran it, and if you go to file application, you're going to see the new file there. So I'm going to download that, and we are going to open that file and grab the header so that we can create the field token. So I do have the field token now. What we are going to do is we are going to generate the field tokens using Notepad++. It is easier that way to do it. I'm going to grab this guy and say I need that information and replace, and there we go. We have the information that we need. Don't have that one there, and I need the field tokens as well. Now if you look at the tables, I have a table created which is nothing but sample profit, and I have all the columns that are there in here. So now if you look at the amount column is a decimal, so I need to change the amount to say it is not text, it is decimal. Okay, now we have all the field types. Let's replace the field tokens with the new one. So I changed that. Now we need to grab the file. So as you can see, the file is in data management, export, and admin. So we have till incoming. We replace incoming from there. Now we are going to say it is going to go under data management, and there is an export folder under data management. Now we need to grab the username. So you can get the username using SI and username. And we are now going to say there is another folder in there, which is nothing but BI data. And the file name is profit.csv. Now with the username, what happens is when OneStream creates a folders, it creates it without any special character. That means any space in your username is going to be removed. If you have special characters, that's going to be removed. So in order to remove that, we are going to use a string helper and then say remove the invalid characters. You could say whether you want to keep the period. So this is going to be our name. We're going to say I don't want to allow periods, and you can also say I don't want to allow spaces. That's going to be our clean username now. So we have that there. We said it is going to be export. So if you look at that, it says applications, application root, and then it says data management. We need the export, admin, BI data, profit.csv. Now our table name is nothing but sample underscore profit. And we're going to replace it. We're saying no headers. Now this is good enough to run the rule directly from here. Now we created a step. That means we need to have something in here as well, because otherwise the business rule step is not going to execute because there is nothing there. So instead of copying the entire thing over here, I'm going to create a new sub, private sub load OS data to table. I need a parameter which is nothing but si. I'm going to say end the sub, going to paste the information that I have, and I need a exception catching, so I'm going to do that, and I am going to say this is what I want to catch. Save that information. Now instead of this, I can now say just need to use that function. That done. Can copy that over here. Save that info. Look at that. And that is working now. Now let's run the sequence. So when we run the sequence, what it is now going to do is it is going to extract the data and it is going to use the business rule to load the data into the queue. Let's see whether we got data. There we go. All the data is now loaded. We have the information there and everything is loaded to it. I'm going to say I don't want the header because the header came in. So now I am going to add another variable in there. I need 2 columns because I want to monitor who ran that. So I'm just going to say last updated by. I'm also going to say last update date. This is going to be another and worker. This is going to be DateTime. So I did that info. That's there. Now we need to add 2 more tables, 2 more columns, so that we can push those information. So last updated by. Now you might ask, this is not coming from the file. Now how are we going to get that information? This is where you can use the XF's text default options. If you want to say, okay, I want a particular column and set a default value for that column, this is how you do it. You can put a colon and then say, this is going to be my default. All the values for that column going to be updated with that. And I need an updated date. So I'm going to say date. And I am also going to say date not now. And then say toString. I'm going to use a format so that the date goes in correctly. So that's there. Now there is another variant to the defaulting where you could say this, a colon and nothing. Okay, in a colon, what that means is if a data is missing in the file, then substitute with the value that you're providing. This, the columns, the entire column will be set to that value. So that's how it is. So now that we have that there, let's run the sequence and see whether we get the default. So I did that. It says successful. Let's look at the data. I don't have anything. So everything is right. The default is the way how it is. And I couldn't figure out how to make it work. So I created a support ticket with OneStream, and OneStream support came back later saying, if I have to load the defaults, I need to have a blank column in the file. So I was like, well, if I'm loading a file that is coming somewhere else, I can put that blank column in there. Now this has been generated by OneStream, so how will I add a blank column in there? I cannot. So that started the gears spinning, and I started looking at why it is working the way it is working. And this is my speculation. It is nothing that I confirmed with the development team or anything. What I think the function load custom table using delimiter is doing is it is generating a data table using the field tokens that you're providing. It is saying this is my column, this is my data type, which is what you're substituting by the XF text XF decimal. So that's the data type. It is generating a data table and then saying these are the columns in my file, load that value to the data table, save the data table. Now, with that information, I thought I could make it work. Now, how to make that work? I don't need the data to have a hash data in there. It has data, so it's going to the downstream system. So I don't need this column which says hash data. I also don't need a footnote and a variance explanation. I'm just removing those three columns. Just saying I don't need those. And I am also going to remove them from here. Just going to say I don't need that information. I don't need a footnote and a variance information. So all I am there saying is instead of creating a blank column, I am saying from the file, remove these and then use that to update the table. So I don't have that info, and I said I don't need the updated by. So I am just moving this up here, which had that, just saying I don't need those information. Now let's see how it works. I'm going to run the sequence again, and that will now extract and then load the table. That has been done. Now let's look at the result. So I'm going to select that, and oh, I do have last update. Oh, I don't have. Well, it's a mistake. It is last update date, not last updated date. So let's run it again. Okay, third's the charm. Let's see. Oh, didn't mean to do that. There we go. We have the last updated by, we have the last update date. Now, you might ask, why did I choose to use a date on a DateTime field? Now, there is a challenge with the DateTime. Now, what happens is, if I do use it as a DateTime, and this is a bug, which I will have to see how to solve that one. So if I say colon ss dot fff, what's going to happen is, since it has a colon in it, it is thinking that there is another parameter coming in there, and then you are not supplying a key. So if I run this one from here, it is going to throw an error saying value cannot be null, the parameter is key, because it thinks that when you have a colon, it thinks that that's a key, and then it wants some value to come in there. So that's why you cannot use it as a DateTime. I think it is a bug. I'll have to talk to OneStream and then figure out why that is happening. But for now, I am just saying, even if it is date, I just don't want that information. I just want the DateTime only, so date only, and that's going to work. And so I did reach out to OneStream regarding the issue that I had with loading a default value to a DateTime column, and they came back with a workaround. So we are going to look at that workaround. So I did record the video earlier, and so this is going to be like a cut. in the video, and we are going to look at the workaround and then continue with the rest of the video. So this is our rule that we were earlier looking at to default a date times as a default. So what OneStream is saying is instead of using the square bracket as an escape, you also add a double quote when you are loading the data. So I have that information added to the code now, and if I now going to delete everything from sample profit, and there's nothing in there. So all we are now going to do is we are going to now run the data management job and then see the values get populated or not. So that's our data management job that we were executing. So I'm just going to run that job. It's going to extract the data, and it is going to run the rule that will push the data into the table. There we go. That is done. Now let's see whether we have the default. Yep, that did work. So the change that we had to do was to use a double quote when it going into the when using the default value. So that 3 double quote is another escape that you use in VB. A 0, 2, or 12, that's a month, minute, second, millisecond, and the key thing is to use a double quote to escape the parameter key issue, which when we were using the column. That's it. Back to the original video. That way it is now getting to load there. Now I am trying to now say this is not geography. Sorry, this is not entity. I want it as to call it as geography. I also want my UD1 to be called as products. Let's see whether that's going to work. So I have to come back here and say this is geography, and I'm going to say this is products. I'm going to save that information. I'm going to delete it so that you know that I'm not cheating. So that's done. Oops. There we go. It's geography. It is products. Let's run. I'm just going to run this one only. Not going to run the whole sequence because I already have the file, and let's do that. There we go. So that's where I was saying it is internally generating a data table, and that table is saying these are the columns of my table, now fill it. Now in the next series we are going to look at how we can load data with skipping some of the columns. Like I'm going to create a table with only the information that I want from the file and then see whether we can load it that way. In this one, what we did was we only removed some columns at the very end and then said I need to repurpose those columns and then do that there. So what happens if I don't do load the UD1 and then say I don't need the UD1 information? So if I am going to now delete these information, it is not going to take it. So if I'm going to say I am going to remove the cube, I don't need that, I don't need parent, and if I say I don't need UDs because I don't use that anymore. Now if I now load this information, I'm going to say this is not there, I don't need the parent, I don't need any of the UDs. If I try this, what is going to happen is my cube information will go to my geography, my cons information will be my geography. It is going to shift it. It is not going to pick it up because it looks at the file, looks at how many delimiters are there, how many columns are there in the file, and then by default fills the data table with the information from the file. So we're going to look at how we can make it work by changing the rule that we have in the next series.